Hi there. Good to see you again at the third episode of Business Talk Live. Today, we're going to talk about a very interesting topic about performance and well-being. And this is all about, well, nowadays society is like so many distractions, lots of chaos, lots of things happening as well. But we've also noticed that it's quite difficult to deal with this energy, to deal with all the distractions we have right now. And that is what we're going to dive into today. My name is Thijs, and I have some really interesting experts at the table who can introduce themselves shortly. Let's go to the left side of me, your right side probably first. We have Dominique here. Dominique, you have founded a company, 2014, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
And before that, you've done some really interesting work in the air.
Yeah.
Let me put it like that. Maybe you can elaborate a little bit like what you've done there.
Yeah, I've been a military pilot for 20 years. I've been to a lot of missions, been a detachment commander of a lot of groups of people, been all over the world, encountered some really harsh situations. And in 2014, I started my business because I believe that we as military aviators, we have some special skills that we don't see in the commercial world. Yeah. And with a group of pilots, I've been analyzing that for I think 8 years now. And it's an amazing world that we can grab from and learn some skills to the commercial world. And I love doing it, and it's all about behavior and energy, and I think a lot of things that we are going to talk about today.
Yeah, definitely. And also the name is the Boost Company, right?
Correct, yeah, Boost Company.
Yeah. Nice name. It's a nice link to you, actually. We have Yves on the other side, Boost Company, Boost Your Flow.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Could be great partners, eh? Yeah.
Who are you exactly, Yves?
Yeah, who am I? It's a big question. Well, first of all, my name is Yves, of course, and I'm from Haarlem. I live there with my girlfriend. I love surfing. I love my family. And on the other hand, of course, I'm also a professional. And I give a lot of training in companies, a lot on team development. Yeah. I'm also a Wim Hof instructor. And I think that, already points out both, right? How to manage performance at work, mostly, with well-being. And it's also more than who you are as a professional.
Yeah. And you mentioned already, Wim Hof instructor. What does that entail, really? Yeah,
so actually I should say Wim Hof method instructor, because the method is something different than the person, Wim Hof, who founded the method. Yeah. But it includes breath work, first of all, and also cold exposure. So it doesn't need to be ice, but most often when I run workshops, we use ice baths, but we can. First, I can tell you why later, and it involves mindset as well. Yeah. And by working with the method, we help people to connect more with themselves, to get happier, stronger, healthier, and it's also a great tool to use for building connection in a group, but also to teach people on what it's actually like to work on energy and focus management.
Yeah. Wow, nice. I can't wait to hear more about this.
I'm gonna see you soon, right, at a workshop.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna be tested on January 8th.
Oh, really?
That's where I can try this myself. So,
wow.
That's the most powerful thing. They say experiencing is understanding.
True.
Because we can talk about it for a long time, but at the end, I think most of these topics are about experiencing them instead of just reading about them or watching a documentary. Yeah. Getting into the field and
being out of the comfort zone or talking about the comfort zone is a totally different thing.
Oh yeah. Tell me about it. Yeah. Well, talking about that actually, being out of the comfort zone, what is, when you think back of what you have been doing in the Air Force as well, what is one of the main things that you have experienced, which was getting out of your comfort zone?
Well, the whole education training that we get is constantly pushing. They push you constantly just a little bit out of the comfort zone, and they keep on doing that for your whole career. So that makes you every time a little bit more resilient for every experience that you encounter. So and that's the biggest difference also with normal schools, academies, or universities. That's what you don't get there. So that's why, we are trained totally different and we think totally different.
Yeah.
So and I think it's the biggest thing that you can have, that out of the comfort zone training gives you literally new set of skills.
Yeah.
So that's what I try to do with all the commercial big companies. You cannot learn that in a class, doing the same thing, hearing the same stuff. You can put it in every time again. It doesn't work.
No.
And not because the stuff is not correct, but you don't feel it. So then it's not working.
So it's not even close to really experiencing it yourself.
Yeah.
And what kind of methods or what kind of activities did get you there?
Well, encountering disappointments is one of the biggest, because that's what life is all about. It's constantly, every time you think you are there, or you can do this, or you have that, it's probably going to go away, or it's going to be different, or it's not what you expected. And if you can deal with that on a really positive and good way, life will be way more good to carry or to handle. Or so you have to train yourself.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing I believe that we don't do anymore.
Yeah. And so you explicitly mentioned positivity.
Yeah.
I also heard that in the pre-conversation we had. So why do you focus on that so much?
Well, I believe, and I think we believe on this table, that everything is about energy.
Yeah.
And energy is something that you can build or break down. And it's all in your system, how you deal with it. And I believe that if you have a positive mindset or a positive affirmations that you train every day, then life will be more positive, because you attract what you how you act.
Yeah.
So if you start the day and you get out of the bed and you are a little bit annoyed about getting out of the bed, and I don't feel like going into this day, and you say it to yourself, it'll probably be a very bad morning at least, and maybe a very bad day.
Yeah.
So if you get out of your bed and you say, well, I don't like getting out of my bed, but hey, see what a beautiful sun or nature, or maybe whatever you can imagine. Yeah. And you say it to yourself, the day starts totally different.
Yeah.
You probably have a nice day.
That sounds really, really easy, the way you mention it like this. But how do I do this? How do I get the positive energy from a day, for example?
A lot of people tell me, yeah, but Dominique, you don't like every day, right? I say, true, I don't like getting out of my bed every day. But it's a choice to say, I hate it, or it's a choice to say, well, I don't care what happens today, I'm going to make it a good day. Yeah. And just that little mindset switch is what gets you started off in the positive mindset.
Very much. Wow.
That's just it. And you have to train it.
Yeah.
But then I think it's also important, of course, to note that it's also okay if you don't feel okay. And then let that be as well.
And let that be. But then be okay with the not okay.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Well, I learned to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. So one thing that I'm also still working on, as everyone is still working on their own stuff. Yeah. And so I noticed, because some things that happened in the past, that whenever I encountered a difficult situation, I really felt the need to solve it right away. Hey, also this is here we have a problem. Let's solve it. Yeah. But sometimes it's also important to acknowledge that it comes with some emotions, and to let that be as well. Because if you don't do that, then you start to maybe ignore that a little bit. So how do you do that? We already talked about it a bit, of course, before. But it's about starting to learn to feel better. The emotions that you have inside, and don't spend too much time here up in the head, and try to solve everything with thinking. But also start to learn how to feel better. Yeah. And
this is also something that you really take very seriously in your approach, right? Like not only thinking, but also get out of the thinking and. Yeah. So, if are we talking about theme development now, or? Well, so both actually. Yeah. So both. So I run a lot of Wim Hof method workshops, and I do a lot of team development, which is more than, of course, about that method. But if you talk about the team, the most important thing, of course, is trust and connection. And how can you build it? Also by building a connection with someone else. Mm-hmm. You don't do that here, right? No. You don't ask someone, hey, do you like soccer? Or do you like nature? Oh, then we have a connection. Mm-hmm. No, you do that here from your feeling as well. So then it's also really nice to use tools. To think a little bit deeper, where you have your attention, not from here, but more
more on the feeling side, and that's where you can really make a connection with someone else.
Yeah, and can you tell us a little bit about how we can get there? What kind of tips do you have for me, for example, to get more out of my mind, but more into my feelings?
Yeah, lots of tools, and there's a whole world. And the more that you explore, the more you realize that there are so many ways.
Yeah.
But a tool that I like to use is also the breath, obviously.
Yeah.
So the way that we breathe instantly changes also our energy.
True.
And the way that we breathe can also really help us to lower all the thoughts that we have in our mind.
Yeah.
And by doing that, calming the mind and also starting to become more aware of what we feel, checking in with ourselves.
Yeah.
And from that energy, it's way easier also to connect with other people.
Yeah. So actually, I also hear this is not something you do just once, right?
No, it's
a sort of structure, a sort of habit you would like to create there. How do I get from not doing it to like doing it? What kind of steps?
Well, first of all, just like I invited you, of course, in January, I think it's always great to just go for a nice experience somewhere, have some people guiding you.
Yeah.
And then, first of all, it's always good to have that experience. And from there on, you can decide for yourself whether that tool or not is something that works for you.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell people, well, at least from now on, you know that if it works, that you can use it whenever you need to, whenever you are under high pressure. And most often when we experience high pressure, we tend to forget about the things that help us because we're more focusing on finding back the control and not falling back on the things that we actually know that are good for us.
Yeah.
And if you really feel that it helps you, then of course it will be most powerful if you can build a habit, a routine.
Yeah.
And make it part of your practice.
Because that's where the biggest difference comes in. You can do it once, and then you know how it works.
Yeah.
But if you want to do it in a stressful or panic situation or in a...
Exactly, you need to fall back on something you know.
But that's when it needs to get into your reptile brain, we say, and that's in the routine.
Yeah.
So if you train it and it gets a habit, then it's in the brain when shit hits the fan, we say.
Yeah.
And then it grabs automatically to the thing it can trust most, and that's in this thing, breathwork or whatever it is.
And I think that you are really the expert in that field, that you really need a lot of training to really put that into your reptile brain.
Because in stressful situations, you need to be able to fall back on this routine, on this.
Yeah. You don't want to be thinking about, I'm in a stressful situation right now.
Yeah, how should I act?
No, it should be there because you train it and because you relive it every time again.
Yeah.
That's absolutely true.
So imagine being in a stressful. It's also interesting for the people who are watching. So ask yourself, what do you do when you experience a lot of stress?
Yeah.
And again, for me, I'm also just human. But what I experience, and probably a lot of people experience as well, is that we tend to maybe get some food for takeaway, some shitty food, some junk food. Yeah. Maybe you are easily annoyed, like, hey, I'm really busy, not now, right? Maybe even to your children if they come to ask you a question.
Yeah.
And of course, this type of behavior can relate to lots of different areas. But the interesting thing is to train yourself, like if you're now in a non-stressful situation, ask yourself, what do I really need when I experience pressure?
Yeah.
And then you probably know. But reminding yourself in the heat of the moment, that's more difficult.
Yeah.
Actually, the training consists out of two parts, I believe. And that is, one part is exactly what you say. How is your ego constantly reacting on situation? Do you know who you really are?
Yeah.
Do you know how you act, how you behave? How do you get the little clues that give you the hint of you're in a stressful, panic situation, whatever? Yeah. And if you know it, then you can recognize it. And then if you put on a training like that, and you do it oftenly, then it will collide at one point.
Yeah.
But it's not from today to tomorrow.
Yeah. Well, and can you give us a little bit of an anecdote or an example of how you've experienced that yourself? Because you've been to quite some challenging situations, I believe, right?
Yeah.
How did you go with that?
Well, I think that what we do is constantly a little bit training out of the comfort zone. Yeah. We do not train breath work, but in our training is hidden breath work, actually, because we train stressful situations so you get more at ease in a stressful situation. An anecdote, I have several. Most of the people that I know will say, well, you've been shut down by the Taliban, and that's the truth. And that was maybe one of the most stressful situations in my life.
Right?
In a helicopter, well, the funny thing is, after the crash and after everything was figured out, what happened actually, we heard a tape with my voice and the voice of the crew on it. Yeah. And in my head, just before I listened to the tape, we all thought that we were in panic in those 12 minutes. And then we listened to the tape and we were pretty okay. And we were pretty at ease and pretty... So what happened
that was when you got shot?
Yeah. So when we got
12 more minutes.
Exactly. We got shot and 12 more minutes and then we crashed into the ground. And we thought the 12 minutes were totally chaotic and we were in panic and we were talking a lot and stuff like that. Yeah. That was what was in our
perception.
Heads. Yeah. And then we heard the tape, the actual tape of those 12 minutes, and we were pretty relaxed. We were even laughing. We were quite in control.
How?
So that made me aware of the fact that it was so much in my reptile brain, so much in my habit to act the way I should act, that whatever happened in my conscious, aware brain of panic was not happening in real life. And that's exactly what you say. Yeah. If it's getting a habit, then you just react the way you should.
Yeah. And how did you make this a sort of habit? And how did you know how to handle in this situation?
You don't know how to handle it. You train, we train, and I think everybody in things like this train for the things you don't know what comes. So you can never train. You train for the not trainable things.
No.
Do you understand that?
You train so you prepare for the unexpected, but you don't expect it to happen.
And you cannot train something that has not happened yet. So, and it will always be different than your training. So that's why you have to train a lot. That's why you have to do breath work a lot. That's why you have to do ice bath. Maybe your body has to react.
Yeah.
How it doesn't know how to react.
Yeah. So actually, you're also referring a bit to you have your own comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
When you get out of that, that's where you really
only
get to
there is where you train.
Yeah.
Only there. If you do something that you already done before, so you stay in the comfort zone, you don't learn anything new. It's impossible because it's what you already know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's familiar.
It's familiar.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Wow.
So you can only train outside of the comfort zone.
Yeah. And how do you translate these experiences and also the lessons you've learned from this to business life right now? Because right now you're also working with lots of teams, lots of companies, right?
Yeah. We do a lot of boards and management teams because the leaders of today is all about knowledge. It's a quick world. You have to react quickly. They ask a lot from you, a lot of hours. And they are highly expertised in what they do. But what they never have learned or experienced is what their ego is. So nobody asks them, do you talk in the language of the person you are talking to, or do you talk in your own language? Because if you tune into the other, so if I want to tell you something, it's the best way to talk in your language. Yeah. The things how you act and how you listen the best. Yeah. But what we learn in school is just sit down, don't say anything, just listen, and somebody puts some words into your head, and that's what you have to do it with. Yeah. So that's what we do as we are leaders in our life. We just tell them, okay, this is my way, this is what you have to do. But if you can tune into the other, he'll probably hear you way better. So the conversation is better, the communication is better, and probably the outcome is better. So that's what we train people actually in.
Okay.
One little thing of the whole.
Yeah.
for instance, yeah.
But this is for leaders specifically. So those are individual programs then you do, or
Yeah, it can be individual, can be in groups, because if we say teamwork, I believe it's always individuals. Because a team will flourish.
When you say teamwork, it's always individuals?
Yeah, because a team consists of how many individuals that you have. Mm-hmm. And all those individuals together, that's how the team will work. Mm-hmm. So if every individual knows who he is or who she is, how he or she acts, how he or she communicates, and he can make sure that he will take the skill that is most effective for that team, then the team will flourish at best. So you have to, a lot of people say you have to be authentic. True, you have to be your authentic self, but you have to know when to not be authentic in a group to make it work.
Yeah, so you need to drift a bit away from your own
which skill do I have to put in this team to make the team better?
Yeah.
But then you have to know your skill set. You have to know your ego. You have to know who the others are. To make it, it's a little bit difficult to explain, but that's what we train people in. So we give them exercises that they've never seen before. They are directly out of the comfort zone, and it's only just this little bit out of the comfort zone. It's not military training, head in the ground and whatever. Yeah. It's only this little bit, and that's where you train. So then you immediately see, how do I react? How do the other people react? And how does it work together?
Right. Yeah.
So the teamwork, what I can relate to is that what I see a lot in teams is that everyone has their own role.
Yeah.
And what I see a lot is that people have certain roles that do not really match maybe their talents or their pitfalls or maybe their ambitions. Yeah. And then when you start to talk about it and explore, like, hey, how are we all different? How are we all authentic? And how could we actually use that to perform? Because at the end, everyone is at work to just make sure that you get your work done. And if you reshuffle all the roles, then most often you will see that a different combination is more optimal
and works better.
Yeah, but as we've been doing this for years, and like this, and now it's almost the end of the year. Another year has gone by, and what did you really change in your team? Thijs is the presenter, and we are the guest, and if you just keep doing the same thing,
that becomes the routine or the habit, maybe.
Yeah. So that's why it's really interesting also to sometimes bring in someone and to act as a mirror and see, like, hey, what would be the optimal combination of using everyone's talents but also asking for help on the things that you find difficult. Do you do that, for example? And so that's something I can relate to in your story.
And do you then use, for example, the ice bath is really concrete, right? Do you use that as a sort of metaphor to then dive into how do we get to this stage?
Yeah, so the thing that we were just talking about the roles, of course, is less about that. But when I do use the ice bath in a program, because it's never the goal, it's always a tool, right? Right. And you use it as a tool, as a metaphor. So let's say now it's the end of the year, and you know your strategy probably for next year. And a lot of things have happened last year, and I think there's a lot of more things coming for next year. It's going to be probably interesting. So you have quite a challenge coming up, right? It's going to be exciting next year. So how can we prepare ourselves for the things that we don't know that's going to come? But they're going to come for sure. Everyone is talking about the recession and the inflation and stuff like that. So how can you prepare yourself for still making the steps that you know are important? So let's say, of course, so forget the ice, but most people afterwards feel really powerful. So you know it is a good decision, but making the step is, of course, also going into the uncomfortable. Yeah. And so how can we still stay in control, like you just shared, and by remaining our own energy, but also setting our boundaries, right? Yeah. Don't be pushed too far. And when you do that, for example, with a tool like the ice bath, like an ice bath, it is also potentially a great insight for you, like, hey, I thought I couldn't even do that. And I stayed really in control, and I stayed in for a few minutes, and I felt great. Yeah. Well, what other things in life or in work can I actually do that I also feel like are quite scary? So maybe it's asking for that promotion or for the raise or starting a relationship or ending a relationship. That's not
this can be in business settings as well as in personal settings. So for example, maybe also for the people watching, maybe you're like postponing, procrastinating things, like the difficult conversation you need to have with your parents.
Even though you know it is important, right? But you know it's going to be difficult, it's going to be uncomfortable. Then it could be a powerful tool to train with, to train yourself, because for sure your body and your mind is going to respond in a situation like the cold. But you can use lots of other tools as well, of course. And and then it's interesting to train in that moment for still making that choice.
Nice. Yeah, and it's nice what you say, because you say a lot of people think maybe I cannot do it, or it's too cold for me, or I can't handle it. And that's the first step, actually, what they have to be aware of afterwards. Yeah. Okay, I thought I couldn't, but I can.
Yeah.
So that's what you do probably then a lot in life. You probably say towards a lot of new things, I don't know if I'm capable.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing where you block yourself.
Yeah.
And
so you make it too big for yourself or something? Or?
No, it's just how our mind works. We just don't want to be in difficult situations. We immediately take ourselves back from that. We don't want to be in there.
Our brain, of course, is primed for survival
exactly.
as well.
You don't want to be there.
Yeah, so your brain will also tell you, hey, maybe this is not a good idea.
Don't do it.
Yeah, this is uncomfortable.
Could be unsafe for you.
Yeah.
But also in life, in other decisions, maybe putting your job on the line because you're daring to speak up to your manager, for example. Yeah. Maybe it's also a danger for some things that give you security.
Yeah.
Even though that you know it's important, because if you don't change things, then for a very long time people are going to cross your boundaries, and at some point you end up having a burnout. Because you were not loyal to yourself and not living up to your own values and stuff like that.
To me, this sounds a lot like what are your personal stakes, desires, needs versus also like expectations from others, right? Like, so maybe the world expects something from you when you're in like a comfortable job. Your manager says to you to do this. You keep doing that. However, it also sounds a bit like conflicting yourself or confronting yourself, like challenging your boss, for example, if he ask you something that you don't like.
Yeah, it's about having open conversations, right?
Right.
So sometimes it's so easy, and we talked about it, of course, when we met each other a little bit as well. That I think the most powerful tools for team development and are so easy that if I will now explain it, you're like,
it's not gonna work.
Yeah, no shit. Like, how can that help?
Yeah.
So if you simply ask a team, like, hey, what gives you energy? What costs you a lot of energy? What gives you focus and what costs you focus? And how do you feel the team performs? Oh, why it is a 6? Why not an 8? And then you feel suddenly that everyone says, these things have been draining our energy and our focus for quite a while. Okay, but what have you done with it? Yeah, not so much, because we most often have really effective meetings like, hey, I need this document, or we need to make that strategy, or the client is coming in. And then actually making some time to as a team, collaboratively explore how you could improve your way of working and to decrease some of those things that really take a lot of energy and focus, and to start build more habits and routines or other agreements that you make in a team that help you to perform better from a well-being and a performance perspective. That's what a lot of people don't do because we're too busy. There's so much stuff to do, right? And there's so much distraction, so much information, so much pressure to perform. So that's why we often just don't do it, because we don't have the time to do it.
And if you slow down, you'll probably speed up afterwards. It's one of the things I've learned as a pilot. If we have an emergency, sit down. We say sit down on your hands for 10 seconds.
Okay.
And it feels it's the most awkward thing to do in an emergency, because if fires on your roof of the helicopter, you want to act. But sit down on your hands and watch for 10 seconds what's really happening. Because that will probably give you more clues and help you in the end. Like, and that's exactly the same as what you say.
Sort of
slow down.
Getting the helicopter view, maybe it's like related to this, but like step out of the situation a little bit and overlook the
just
situation.
Give yourself a little bit of time, and it's a metaphor for stepping out of the normal activities with your team and look at it a different way, or do something else for once in a while, so you can help yourself and your team to be better, quicker, more in connection, and do the best role you have, or to flourish the team. And there's one more thing, and that's actually what you say as well. We say plan, do, check, act. You plan something to do, you do it, or you act, and then afterwards check it. Is this the right way? And if you put some time in that, it feels awkward in the beginning because it slows you down. Again, slows you down. But in the end, it will speed up the whole process. It will give you more profit. It will give you more, you excel more in the things you do. It's absolutely true.
And so maybe this is a really nice timing because we're at the end of the year. The year's almost over. Lots of people probably use this as making New Year's resolutions. How can we make use of what has happened, looking back, reflecting, and take things on from here Also, I saw a question from from someone watching. So everyone sending your questions through the chat if you want. Mm-hmm. What are the easy takeaways to start in a new year?
I would say make sure that you start with just positive thoughts, because it's the start of the biggest change in your life. If you try and of course be in the moment where you say, if you have a bad day, make it a bad day, but just own the bad day and say, well, that was a bad day. Tomorrow I'll try and make it different. So the positive vibe in your head is the first, I believe, start of the...
To break maybe a pattern that has been
going on. To break
a
pattern,
on. Yeah. What I would say is maybe, especially as we're now really almost at the start of the new year, schedule some time ahead for slowing down, also for breaking that pattern. It's actually the same concept. So maybe if you would make it really easy, maybe like once every 3 months, schedule one day.
Exactly.
I don't know if you need to take off, or maybe you have a good story to your boss, if you have a boss, and go somewhere else. Maybe you go to a nice restaurant at the beach or so, where you're going to work and surrounded by nature, to check in with yourself, like, hey, what were the last 3 months like? Maybe you can schedule a few hours for getting some stuff back in control that needed some time, but you were postponing. Thinking about, like, how do I want to spend the next few months? What difficult decisions do I need to make? What conversations do I need to have? So schedule some time to slow down as well. And I think it is best done, also out of your ordinary areas where you work, right?
Yeah. So actually, what you say is train yourself to tune in on how you really feel.
As well, that's really part of that.
Yeah.
And then in case I have difficulties with that, like how can I do this? Or is there someone or some tools or approaches that I can make use of doing this?
There are a lot, but
what would help you?
Well, I'm a mediator, so I'll be in between, but I'll help people with conflicts.
Yeah.
And there's one big thing I've learned in the 10 years of education that I've done in that, and that is, if you feel something in your stomach, you're probably going to recognize this. If you feel something in your stomach, you probably don't know what it is. But if you're in a conversation or yourself, just you feel it, and then we normally step over it. Yeah. Just stand still and feel, what is it? You can feel somebody else's sadness or feel somebody, and that's energy we send out.
It's sort of cue for that.
That's a little cue. Yeah. And if you try and listen to that and you start training yourself in that, your world gets way more, how do you say that? What's the word? Vulnerable for what happens around you. And that's when it's the same thing as tuning in. It's all training and tuning into yourself, tuning into the people that you are with. What conversations do I have? But you have to train it. You have to make yourself aware constantly.
Well, one thing that you, of course, now see a lot as well since COVID is that so many people are switching jobs, right?
Yeah.
And I think, of course, there can be many reasons. But I think one of the main reasons is that a lot of people realized that once you take away the office and you do everything from home, and then when they look at their job, that they feel like, hey, maybe this is not the job that really makes me happy. Yeah. And of course, newer generations are more and more they find it very important to also do something that really gives them some fulfillment. Yeah. And and we study years and years to get a lot of knowledge. Yeah. But I think if you look at fulfillment, it comes more from wisdom, and it also comes more from your intuition. Yeah. From knowing what you really feel. So I think that will be an increasingly scarce skill maybe to really have, to really be able to trust in your intuition. It is so important to give you at the end that fulfillment and do the things that you actually love. And then you really need to be able to check in with yourself and know what drives you. Yeah.
And actually the recent developments over the past years, of course, also have changed a lot in ways of working, like working remote, like you mentioned, through COVID, but also the inflation which is coming up, the big, the mass tech layoffs. There's lots of things happening in the labor market. So this also maybe requests or asks different things from us while working, right? Do you notice that in the teams, the groups you're involved in? they have different things they deal with right now in their ways of working?
I don't know.
Or is it like the core things happen over and over again?
Well, I think that exactly what you say. Because of what happened the last few years, people are more aware of what am I actually doing.
Yeah,
that's just we confronted ourselves with that, but it's not. A lot of people think, oh, I'm getting new habits, I'm getting a positive way of thinking, or I'm in tune with myself, or I'm doing ice bath, or I'm breathwork. It's not going to change life like, okay, now I have the job that I loved from since I was a kid. Yeah. That's not the truth. But it's just a mindset in it that makes you happier, more... see, the job stays the same, but the way you look at it is different. The way you handle it, the way the mentality handles it. And that's actually what it is. And from there... you can change your lifestyle or your job ultimately, but that's it's smaller.
Yeah. So the more the perspective you have on it.
Exactly. Yeah. That's where the difference starts. And use breathwork or ice bath to just shift
there's
whole
lots
thing.
of tools, of course.
Yeah.
So that's not. I'm never saying that it's like one of the solutions. It can be one of the solutions, but not the solution.
It doesn't really matter how you do it, but you have to change. Just small, don't challenge yourself with, next year I have to say everything to my boss and I have to do a different job. That's not the truth. No. Just start by, okay, how do I feel when I walk in the office? And why do I feel that way? Yeah. How do I look at my colleagues? How do they look at me? Do I know how they look at me? Just, if you start like that. And do yoga or do whatever sports you like next to it, then you shift your whole being towards...
Start small.
Start small, Don't make a new year the thing, okay, this year I'm going to change my job. Wow, that's a high, how do you say that? Level where you have to switch to.
Yeah, and like you really make things really big. Yeah. So that it becomes probably even harder to get there.
Exactly, life is only small parts, just one another. Yeah. One after another.
And of course, so you could look at this topic from two perspectives. One is more from the HR perspective, which I think is also maybe part of some of the people watching this conversation. The other one is more from the individual perspective. So I think in general, more and more people are concerned with that. They find it important that the things that they do, that they really like the things that they do. And the other one, of course, more from the company perspective. You want to keep your people together. Yeah. And one mistake that I see a lot is that a lot of companies offer these workshops where individuals can decide for themselves, like if they want to attend it. Yeah. So whether it be, you mentioned, it can be anything, from yoga to sports, meditation, breathwork, or there are so many tools.
So there's a lot
of well-being programs offering all kinds of workshops, right? Yeah. So. But what happens a lot when you offer this for the individuals, let's say you have a team of 10 people, there's 2 people from this team going to attend the workshops, and then they come back, they're super inspired and they feel like, oh, I learned how to listen more to myself and I'm going to set my boundaries. Well, then the other 8 people, they didn't attend those workshops, then it's pretty damn difficult to really make progress.
They'll drag you down.
Yeah. And that's why I think it all started, the well-being programs all started one day with some fruits in the office, and then it were a few workshops. Yeah. And now it becomes maybe a little bit on a deeper level. And I think one of the next steps is also to work on it on a team level, because when you get everyone together, then you can way faster make some serious progress on how do we actually want to deal with this as a group. Yeah. And they also have this saying that people leave managers and teams and not really companies. Because maybe 80% of your work, especially now that you work quite a lot from home, is with your team, right? Yeah. So it becomes the team is more and more important.
Especially people that will not write for a course or will not join a course. Those people you want to tune into. Yeah. Because they need it the most.
Apparently they don't want to sign up for...
Too busy.
Exactly. And there's one more thing. A lot of HR people that I talk to, they say, well, if we give them too much knowledge about themselves, they'll probably shift for jobs. But it's not the truth. Because if you make them mentally resilient, they can do whatever job. Yeah. It doesn't really matter. If they're happy in themselves, it doesn't really matter what job you do.
Yeah. That's an interesting perspective, because you can probably think from a more scarcity perspective, if we do this, then
they'll probably fly off. Yeah.
Maybe that's even better when they do, because probably then it wouldn't be the right fit. But
but they probably won't. They know better. They know a lot more about themselves. They are more mentally resilient. They're better in a team. So everything is nicer.
Yeah.
So the job is nicer. So they probably won't leave.
It sounds scary for me as being responsible for HR, for example, like doing this.
No, scared is just one thing that you have to switch to. Hey, that's exciting to look at. Because you said that exciting next year. What's all going to happen? That's the perfect way of saying it. You can say it at two different ways. Or, oh my God, we'll probably have a really busy next year in fear.
Yeah.
HR fear, whatever fear. Or you say, wow, that's exciting. Let's look into it. What can we get out of it?
Yeah. I love it. I already feel energy like getting up now.
No, but I do agree that if you start to give more attention and also spending more time and energy and money on well-being and the balance with performance in the workplace, and probably on the short term, you're going to see a few people leave.
Yeah.
But I also hear more and more HR managers or company owners who say, well, it better be, because I wanna stay around with the people who really want to work here, right?
Yeah.
And if you want to build like a high performance team, of course, it's also maybe a trendy way to put it. But if you want to have a real team that collaborates with each other in the best way possible, also take good care of each other, and then
that shows
you
off.
really need those people. That really choose to work there.
They really want to go for it. Like, actually, like recently, that happened also with Elon Musk. Obviously, like saying, like, well, if you decide not to move forward with us within Twitter, then you can leave, right? But
maybe not the best way.
I know,
as he did it. But
what do you think of that? I'm curious. For how do you see? How do you look at his approach? Like saying, well, if you leave now, it's fine. You get a nice bonus or like a fee when you leave. But
well, I think you could say, like, I didn't follow it too intensively, but what I know is that he was super fast, maybe the fastest ever that they knew that a new CEO would tell his people that there would be layoffs and that it would happen super fast, right? And what I also, so you could say, well, maybe it's quite efficient. If it has to be done, could be done also fast.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that he could do a lot better is first make some connection with the people who were working there, because they've been putting a lot of effort and love and time and energy in that company as well. And what I read is that the first email that he sent was about people losing their jobs.
Yeah.
So I would say, well, I think it's a good thing that we maybe not take just months or years before we get all of that done.
Yeah.
But make sure that you make some connection and that you respect people and
But also this, you have to see it in the big way, because if you are Elon Musk or somebody similar, not a lot of people in the world are similar to him.
No.
But if you are like him, you are a little bit strange. So you do this in a strange way, probably. Yeah. That's why you have a lot of money. That's why, it's an awkward person. So I think that we can, he should have done that, absolutely. But then probably, if he was like that, he probably
wouldn't be as successful as he is.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's...
Yeah. And again, it's up to the people if they want to work for someone like that, right? I can imagine that you can have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Maybe a good paycheck and work on cool technology. But you also have a choice, right? And I think if you make your choice really from yourself, from what drives you, then it will probably always be the best choice. And if you make that choice because people say, well, but you have all the brains, you have all the education, you should work for Elon Musk. And in the meanwhile, you are almost in a burnout and your relationship gets worse and stuff like that. Then it's probably not the best decision. So what drives your motivation to do something? If it comes from yourself, then I think it's always a good decision, right?
Yeah, no, I want to add two things to that, because he's also he's also the one that never takes people from only the paper that they receive from the university or whatever. He just takes people in who are themselves and who just tell him what they can do. So I love that approach, actually. And there's one thing I want to add on the thing that we were talking just a little bit before. For the HR people, because it's valuable that we say it. If you give people the well-being that they need, and if you give them the training or the workshops that they need, and you have exactly what Yves says, the team that is really dedicated, motivated, they want to be there, that shows off towards other people. Because then you get the people that say, I want to work in a team like that. Yeah. And that attracts way more people.
Sort of a rip-off effect to the rest of
absolutely. Because everybody wants to work in a team that is good and is in a good vibe and works efficiently and has, take care of each other and stuff like that. So I think it attracts, in the end, ultimately more people than if you stay away from being well and keep it the way because I'm afraid. Yeah. I really believe that it works that way. I just want to add it for all the HR that is afraid of getting out of the comfort zone.
Yeah, but it is like you say also, like in the beginning, short term, it could be like scary to do so, but in the end, it probably should benefit everything you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And another thing I was interested about because right now we have been talking also about, okay, how can I do this for myself? How can I, sort of steer my life towards the right direction? How do you look at a term called accountability in this? So what kind of people do you need, or what kind of things do you need to make sure that you keep yourself accountable for these changes, right? Also in teams, I can imagine. Because you also depend on your colleagues, for example. Yeah. Do you have an idea on, or what's your take on how do I keep myself accountable, but also how can I keep others accountable for the progress we make as a team?
There's one thing that I can answer on that, and that is if you brief and debrief. In the pilot world, in the aviator world, we brief if we go into a mission or we go into the day or we're going to do whatever we're going to do. We act and then we debrief. And in the debrief, and it can be about the day again, about your whatever you do, be firm for the things that we did, but be soft on the human. So if you make the conversation open, it's exactly what he already said. And you say, well, okay, we made a mistake here. We could have done quicker in this part, blah, blah. But I saw your motivation and I saw the intent that you put in. Yeah. And that was wonderful, but we're going to take this part with us the next day. Then you get a way more efficient manner of collecting the lessons learned, but also be accountable for what you did, but still be the vulnerable person that you are. Yeah. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, do you also mean like focus on the behavior, not on the person?
Exactly.
Yeah. So you distinguish those.
This is
what the actual thing that happened. So you only evaluate that.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay. Because I still can feel like that you're the best person in the world. Being the vibe, but you just made a mistake. Doesn't matter, but we have to learn from it.
And then again, this is also so simple. So at the end, it's also about how to give feedback, right?
How to give feedback.
And even if you talk to some of the managers who are the highest up, if you ask their people, that's a way better question actually. Yeah. How do you feel about giving feedback, especially in relationship to this manager? Then you'll be surprised about the stories. Let's put it that way. But this is just, skills that I think all humans should have. So I learned so many things in school that I never used. And I think if you will just learn young children maybe already, or at least in high school, how to give some proper feedback based on what actually happened instead of like putting it on the person, right? Yeah. It's basic life skills. And I really like the idea of the 21st century skills. What do we need to drive in the 21st century, especially for people growing up now? And then it's especially with all these artificial intelligence tools that have gone viral now. I think will be a lot less value on the knowledge that you have and more on
human interaction,
skills and human interaction and being able to collaborate in a team and feeling if someone maybe needs help and asking like, hey, how do you feel? Are you managing? Can I help you and also reflecting on how you collaborate actually and giving some proper feedback.
Yeah. And if kids learn that they are not punished on the person, but only for the thing they did, punished, but then they'll probably ask for help more. Because if you know that it doesn't matter if I make a mistake or if I'm asking for help, then they'll probably be more, 2 feet on the ground, on the earth, and be who you are.
And then that's probably also where they start to understand that this is something, if you do this, you learn from it instead of like, you feel like being...
Yeah, it's exactly what I do with my 4-year-old.
Yeah.
I tell him, okay, this was not really convenient to do, but I love you till death, but oh my God, this has to be different tomorrow, okay?
Yeah.
Right, high five on that.
Yeah.
Just as simple as that. And if you do it with your coworkers or whatever, they'll probably just grow from it.
Yeah.
They say, wow, that was nice getting that feedback because it's positive feedback. And still tell them what was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Or a really easy way to also in teams that you can use is to just sometimes facilitate it, right?
Yeah.
Because if you ask a team like, hey, how do you feel about, to which extent do you feel that people give each other feedback enough?
Yeah.
And then they say, almost all the teams that I work with say, let's say something like a 5 or 6. They feel like there's, of course, we do give some feedback, lots of room for improvement.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's just as easy as facilitating, giving feedback. So let's say you have once a month a retrospective on the month, and then include in your format. That people give some feedback to each other. You can also do that, of course, in lots of different ways.
Yeah.
And one thing that I always introduce in the team as well is to also check in with each other on, hey, how hard have you been working on a scale from 1 to 10? So how much effort have you been putting in? But also, what is your current energy level on a scale from 1 to 10? And if you do that with a team, then you can really easily see whether people are more in the survival zone or in the healthy performance zone, or maybe they're making some time to recharge, or people are more in the burnout zone.
Yeah.
If they, let's say, I hear you sharing for 3 months already in a row that you've been working on a 9 on a scale from 1 to 10, quite hard.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. It costs you a lot of energy. And then I hear you saying, well, first my energy was 5 and now it's 4 and then it's 3.
Yeah.
And I feel like, hey, maybe you can hand over some projects to me and make some time to really recharge. So we're not going to ask anything from Thijs now. And in the future, preferably, we're not even going to make you end up on that 4.
Because you will be exhausted when you continue doing this and ending up in things like burnouts maybe.
Yeah, it's like driving a car, right? When you hit the gas, you need to every now and then stop, recharge, so that you can speed up.
And ultimately, what you want to do is that you tune in the morning, you come in, and just look at each other and say, how are you going today? Are you, is it fine? How are we on the energy levels? Okay. We say, are you good to go today?
Yeah.
And then we just answer, honestly, no, I'm not. I've been in a really bad night because of whatever. Okay, then you stay at home and find another
children or
But there needs to be a safe space to do so, right?
Yeah. But that's why you say start with once a month, once 3 months, whatever.
Yeah.
And
make that a routine.
Training. Make it a routine. And then ultimately people just start in the morning and say, well, hey, how are you doing?
Yeah.
Maybe even better, not in a formal way to do it on a daily basis, because then it loses the value. Of course, then it's more in an informal way, like, hey, you good? Oh no, maybe there's something. But in a formal way, like facilitating it in a format, that could be best maybe like once every 2 weeks or a month, or even if you do it, let's say you do it quarterly. Imagine what it can already add up. And of course, a lot of employers...
You open up the conversation, that's the most important.
And a lot of employers, of course, are really focused on getting the burnout rates down. And of course, there's a lot more than just focusing on burnouts. It's also helping people who already feel really good to maybe feel even better, to perform even better. And also to help others who are maybe not even feeling not so good. But if you ask a person who has a burnout, when they maybe recover a little bit, and to reflect on the... building up to that burnout, almost everyone who I talked with said, well, if I now look back, my body was giving me all these signals, but I was ignoring them, right?
Yeah, the cues you mentioned earlier.
You can easily override your feelings with your mind, because your mind is super strong.
We've trained our children on that.
As well, probably.
We train them not to listen.
Is it?
We train. Well, we train, and if you put people in kindergarten or in primary school, we train them to sit down and listen, and you don't put in constantly your own feelings. Shut it down. Yeah. Just listen for the whole 8 hours.
For the group.
For the group effort, you need to shut down. So that's what we've all trained ourselves to do. Yeah. Don't listen, just do what you have to do.
Yeah.
That's also interesting because
and that's exactly what you see. Tune back into that.
Yeah, if you do that more often, you're probably not gonna miss all those signals.
Yeah. And that's why you want, as an HR, do workshops out of your comfort zone or get somebody into the company that checks it, because you have to put the team out there to get the conversation going. Yeah. And if they start going into those conversations, they'll probably end up doing them from themselves more.
Yeah, so it becomes more of an automatic kind of routine structure. Yeah. And if you, for example, I'm a business owner, I'm watching this conversation as well. Like, of course, I would like to invest in making the group, the teams more open to feedback, making sure that they talk about the things that they value a lot, also about their well-being. But on the other hand, I also have numbers to keep up with. Like if else my business is going to die. What would you like to say to them? Like, because for me, it's maybe a really hard trade-off. Like, okay, I need to invest more in getting people aligned, getting people well-being. But still, there are numbers to maintain. What would you like to say to them?
Well, if told them already, you can start off really small just by doing it once a quarter or maybe every 2 weeks or whatever. Yeah. Just start with a different conversation that you normally do. Yeah. Maybe, if you get somebody in the company and do 1 day a workshop or team event that will get them out of the normal zone. Yeah. And just check what happened, and that's what I'm going to take off with. And I think ultimately it will give you more profit, so it will be returned. Yeah.
And there's also lots of research done that also confirms that. That investing in well-being is quite a high turnover or a return on investment. Sorry. Right. And of course, business owners want to have a business case, right? Yeah. So if you know your own KPIs, let's say a retention of employees or burnout rates or employee engagement, and then you have a few, run a pilot. Maybe with a team, and because I really believe in the power of working on a team level, and then check again a few months later how it helped the team. Yeah, and I think one of the things that are quite easy to work on is also finding a little bit more efficiency, and it doesn't mean that we should do more, because a lot of people are not really waiting to do even more, but it's about taking away some of the noise, and maybe using that space that results from that for better well-being, for taking more breaks, having actually some time to build connection, to check in with each other, or maybe to have a strategical session on coming up with some agreements on how we're going to collaborate in next year. So it's not always about doing more, but it's about taking away noise. Yeah, and I think in my experience, that's one of the little bit easier things. It's more on the focus, on the productivity side. So dare to challenge someone if you are invited in a larger meeting. Am I really needed in this meeting? And does it need to be 2 hours? Or can we also maybe do it in 45 minutes, for example? Really easy. And yet a lot of people don't dare to really do that. Why? It's because of also maybe a lack of trust and connection, that they feel like, hey, it's quite ignorant to ask me that, right? Because I invited you. Well, if you know that you can really trust each other, it's probably also okay to challenge someone. Yeah. Hey, there's a meeting of 8 people. Am I really needed? Because I can also use my time for another project that is important.
True. Yeah, you can use your time once.
These are some easy examples that I think can already show you how it can easily pay back. Because it's not about everyone taking better care of themselves. It's about using your time and energy in a more efficient way. Yeah. And it will help you to perform better, while taking better care of yourself and each other. Yeah.
That's a nice one. And I also heard you saying, like, maybe start with a pilot, right? With a smaller team or a small experiment, with a small group, and then build from that. That also relates a little bit to what I heard you say earlier. Like, if you see one team like performing really well and connecting really well, then other people want to be part of that, right? Yeah. That's so you can make it exclusive, like starting this pilot, and you can test in quite a safe space.
As easy as that. Yeah, you don't have to Yeah, so sorry for interrupting you. Yeah. So I think that's the way to start working on a team level, because I've also been talking to some HR people who then felt the need to offer to everyone. But you don't really need to offer to everyone right away. Maybe some teams are doing quite fine, right?
Yeah.
So maybe you can start offering to some teams that either are a bit new, that they don't know each other yet, or there's some stuff going on, either in the market for that team or maybe in the team.
Yeah.
And offer it to the teams that need it. You don't need to offer it company-wide straight away.
And there's even one step smaller than that, because you're talking about the business owners, and they are kind of afraid to go out of the comfort zone, because that's where it ends.
Yeah.
If you it's true. If you have that feeling, just start off with single sessions about where is my comfort zone and why is it, because that's where your own fear starts, and you have to overcome that little fear to give the people that need it also their whatever they need.
Yeah.
But you have to see as a business owner that you can only grow as much as you keep the level.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? So if the business owner is in fear of going there, that's where he stops the whole team.
Yeah,
so if
because there's like a sort of ceiling there,
of course,
like keeping him holding him back.
Yeah. He keeps the rest down because he's in fear of going out of his comfort zone. And if he is going to check his comfort zone and sees, oh wow, there's a lot more to have, to give, to learn, then he'll probably open up the lid and give the others the opportunity as well. So that's as small as you can start as well.
Yes.
And that's sort of setting an example as being a manager, an owner, a boss, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Having a top-level manager, being vulnerable in front of his own people,
being coached,
or her
being
people
whatever,
as well. I think that's one of the biggest success factors you can have for running programs.
Yeah, and that's maybe sometimes I tap into that as well. That I see a business owner trying to give his people what they need, but he doesn't know and he doesn't feel and he doesn't, is aware of what he's doing. And then I'm just in a call with him and I say, well, you're doing so great by giving them this. Do you see what happens? And I'll take him by hand, looking on the little things that I'm constantly talking about. And he sees it and he's going like, wow, okay, thank you for showing me, because now I don't have data, what we all want today, but I see and feel what it does. And that's actually what we're talking about, because you can never have data about well-being. You can challenge people saying it, but ultimately you don't have data.
You can give them a business case if they want.
But this is actually a really full circle now, because we talked about experience it yourself before you can really learn, right? So I think this is also a nice way to get to the end of the conversation. Thank you for that. But one more question to you first. Is there like anything left that you would like to share, which you say like, oh, this is something I really would like to
one thing that I would really like to point out as well is that people know a lot and you don't have to give them more knowledge. And I think you should really help them to start doing it more, right? Because if you would gather just a random group of company's employees and say, what do we know about how distraction works or how to take good care of ourselves? They will probably know so much, but they're not doing it. So I think one of the main challenges is to help them start applying it more in their daily way of working.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Beautiful. How about you? Do you have anything you'd like to share?
Well, I think we've shared a lot of nice things, and maybe people are thinking about it already. But I just want to challenge people a little bit about the question: Do you really know how you look at the things and at the people? And just start off with that little question, and start off with yourself, because if that energy breaks out of you, it'll probably give you a circle and it will expand to other people. And it really starts with your own question first, I think.
Well, thank you so much. I was really happy and excited to have you here. Thank you so much for taking the time and to
thank you.
tell everything that was on your mind. Maybe for you guys, we're rounding off this episode. I really enjoyed this conversation with Yves and with Dominique. And also for you, January 20th, we will have another talk show. This time we will go into the future of work together with the CEO of Remote, Job van der Voort and Mandy Frans, who is like leading the world's biggest remote workers community. So really interesting to go into that conversation. So stay tuned, apply for the next one. And again, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Thanks.